All right, everybody. Welcome back to BBCG and Friends, episode 6. I'm really getting it done over here with all these episodes, and very grateful for all the feedback and actually all the guests who have come on, especially right at this moment, Bill Leach, one of the Rhode Island guys in the Miniverse. Bill, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And I've been starting. Obviously, I had a theme and an idea with this pod, so I kind of start off the same way. Is tell me about your early musical memories,
Sure.
whether it was through your parents or your siblings or friends. Talk to me about that.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely through my parents. My parents, big classic rock fans. My dad, maybe a little more so like Southern rock, like the Bob Segers of the world, Leonard Skinner, things like that. And I grew up listening to almost that exclusively, maybe till I was about like 8 or 10 years old. I think it was probably about 7 or 8 years old, maybe, when I finally like learned of modern music. Like prior to that, I'd just been listening to like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Leonard Skinner, Bob Seger. My first CD, it was a CD. My first album, I guess I should say, was the Beach Boys' "Still Cruising," if that kind of gives you an idea. So, I grew up mostly listening to classic rock, just whatever my parents had on the radio.
Sure. And tell me kind of what road you ended up going down off of those early days. What was the first music that you were kind of drawn to, that you kind of discovered yourself?
And so the first, I actually remember like pretty distinctly, probably around third grade or so. I got introduced right around the same time, both to kind of different, to Sugar Ray and Korn.
Okay.
And both kind of became my immediate favorites at that time. So they're probably like the first two bands not of my parents that I listened to. Specifically, like I think Sugar Ray's album Floored had just come out, and Korn it was Follow the Leader. So those were like the first two like albums not influenced by my parents that I probably heard. I don't know if I got them right away. There, those parental advisories back in the day, but
sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where it went.
And so that's a pretty broad spectrum, right?
Yeah.
What refresh my memory, because I'm not a huge fan of either band, but what was like Sugar Ray? Was there a big hit off that Sugar Ray album?
Yeah, Fly.
Oh, okay.
Like I just want to fly. Yeah, that was like a huge one. And then Follow the Leader for Korn, obviously, Freak on a Leash, Got the Life. That was, probably their biggest album up to that point.
And so third grade, so what year is that? Is that in the late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s. I would say probably 90. Maybe it was like, maybe it might have been later than that. Maybe I was 10. It was probably around 97, actually. So probably, probably wasn't third grade. It was maybe like fourth or fifth grade. So you're probably around 10 years old.
Yeah, I just actually went on Wikipedia for Sugar Ray, and I saw the album Floor came out in 97.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think Follow the Leader did too. So probably would have been 97. So I would have been 10. Okay.
All right. So 97, you weren't an bop guy?
I mean, I listened to it. It was popular.
Yeah.
Actually, my younger brother, 4 years younger than me, someone bought him that. I don't know. One of his friends must have had it, and he wanted it. Someone bought him that album. So yeah, I listened to it, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
I would say I appreciate that for its absurdity more now than I did then.
Yeah, it was absurd, and I've also heard subsequently they must have done like an unplugged or an acoustic version of that song, which is so much better than the original. I mean, it's sugary pop, Frosted Flakes with extra sugar. I mean, that tune for sure. But so if you're 10-ish in 97, so were you like a big TRL guy on MTV, TRL Live? Did you consume all of that MTV at that time?
Oh yeah, that was appointment television back then. Like I remember come home first thing on the TV, and MTV was great back then. There were so many good shows.
Right. Right. So what's funny is in the last couple of episodes we've been talking about the start of MTV, and there's definitely a point in there where it changed to focus on more shows as opposed to videos. I don't know exactly where that line is. I mean, I remember watching MTV when kind of Beavis and Butthead hit and the Real World hit.
Right.
I know Kirk has talked about the Real World in the past. There was before that even there was like Remote Control, which was a crazy game show that Adam Sandler was on at one point and Ken Ober. But yeah, the and I would think the area that you're talking about, there was also like other competition shows, wasn't there?
Yeah.
On,
So
what
yes,
was
there
those
was.
shows?
Say What Karaoke was a big one, which if I I was lucky enough to be invited on Mike and the Minifans a couple months ago, and I told them my idea for a show on the KMS network, Say What Karaoke, where people would have to sing do like a competition where people would have to sing parody songs, and I was laughed out of the room. But so yeah, Say What Karaoke was a huge one. That was basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. You had to sing
Right,
karaoke against another person. Yeah, then there were other ones that weren't really music based, like Room Raiders and Next and Parental Control were like,
right.
they're more like
Room,
reality type. Like they were like, they weren't game shows per se, but they were like dating type things and all kinds of stuff like that. But
there,
TRL and Say What Karaoke were the music ones.
what wasn't there also like a crazy like about teenage moms or something?
Yeah, yeah.
It,
Teen Mom,
I
I think. Yeah,
teen
Teen
mom.
Mom.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
I
wild.
started to get a little too old, and I knew I shouldn't be watching about teen moms, so I moved on. Um, so Sugar Ray, Horn, that was kind of your starting point discovering your own music. Did you go down either of those paths as you kind of moved through high school and whatnot? Where did you kind of end up at the end of the road musically?
Like more of the corn route, I would say. So like a lot of new metal, like all those Corn, Disturbed, new metal, hard rock, are probably like was and still is my wheelhouse. Like Shine Down, Godsmack, bands like that, definitely for sure. But like as I've gotten older, like I've learned to appreciate other genres, but that very much was and kind of still is my wheelhouse.
So when you mentioned Disturbed, um, the only thing I know about that band is a cover of Land of Confusion by Genesis.
Yep.
When did that come out? And that I kind of like that.
2005. That was on their album 10,000 Fists, which I think is an underrated album of theirs. Might be their. You could argue it's their best. For me it's probably second. But yeah, 2005. I remember. It's funny. I didn't know that was a cover until a while later. Because I wasn't a big Genesis. Like my parents didn't really listen to Genesis, so I didn't
Right,
really
right.
know. I thought it was just a Disturbed song, but it's a fantastic song. They've always done good covers.
Uh, I also saw, I haven't listened to it, but they do a cover of The Sounds of Silence, right?
Oh, you haven't
I,
listened to
s-
it?
I haven't listened to it.
That might be their most commercially popular song of all time. Like that song, that song got. I want to say that came out, man, maybe like 10 years ago now, maybe like 2015-ish, right around, give or take a couple years. And like they hadn't been as mainstream popular probably in 10 years at that point, and that song was big enough to get them on like the Tonight Show and all kinds of national shows. I'm kind of surprised. It's much slower and darker than the Simon and Garfunkel version.
Okay.
um I like it a lot, personally. um
I have to check it out.
Biased, I guess.
Yeah. hmm Um, so that's a period of rock which again, I think it's the difference between our ages. Clearly, I missed, right. I mean, there was so many of those. I mean, you mentioned a bunch of them: Godsmack and Corn and Disturbed. There are so many. When, um, were you aware? Were you watching what was going on at Woodstock '99?
I was. I was. I've always said my biggest regret, not my biggest regret, but a regret of mine is that I was too young to go to Woodstock '99. I was 12.
Right.
I would have loved to go. I know I guess obviously maybe I don't want to be in the Limp Bizkit riot.
Yeah,
and I
yeah, yeah. Right.
and I know some of the conditions were bad, but just like music wise, like that is probably every band I loved, like from like the time I discovered, like I said, discovered music that wasn't my parents till through high school and beyond. Like that's probably every band that I've loved all in one show. So like
Right.
musically, that would be a bucket list show if I was old enough to go.
Did was Rage Against the Machine there?
I don't remember. I'm actually not a huge Rage guy. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
They're okay. They're fine. They're a little too. I don't love when music is overly preachy and like every song of theirs is preachy. Like the bands I listen to, like yeah, they have some here and there, but like it's like every Rage Against the Machine song's a protest song.
Right.
Like musically, they like Tom Morello's a fantastic guitarist. I just never really got into them too much.
Yeah, obviously I came to them through Springsteen. Morello has played with Bruce a few times, and he, in 2014, toured for about 4 or 5 months
I didn't know that.
with the E Street Band. Yeah,
Oh wow,
um, and if you've heard their version of the Ghost of Tom Joad, which is a Springsteen song from 1995. Morello does an amazing solo on it, and I agree. They're definitely a little preachy for sure, and I've never spent too much time with them, so I only came to them again through Springsteen. Um, Going back to Woodstock '99, a funny little story I have is my wife and I got married in January of '99, and that show was either, I think it was in July of '99, Woodstock. And my wife's best friend had just broken up with her boyfriend, and she was all depressed. And she asked my wife if she wanted to go to Woodstock '99 with her. And my wife, being a good friend, agreed, and they made the trip up there. They
that's awesome.
it's ridiculous. And I was like, where are you going and why are you doing this? And I mean, I had a whole weekend of golf, which was fine, but with no kids at the time, but it seemed crazy to me. So anyway, they got there on the Friday, and they already saw, like, they were going to camp out and they had the tickets and everything. They slept in their car Friday night. Like, literally, they did not go into the concert. So that was
Really?
Friday. Yeah, no, on Saturday, because they were scared.
Yeah,
They were
it's
like
understandable.
seeing,
I can see that.
bathrooms and mud and everything. And then Saturday, it just started getting worse and worse and worse. And they just made the smart decision. They found a hotel, 20 miles away, and so their Woodstock '99, they spent in a bed and breakfast outside of wherever this Rome, New York is. And my wife, so, and I'm watching it, and nobody had cell phones back then.
Right.
And it was like, and then on Sunday, I'm seeing fires, during the, and I'm like, waiting to hear from her. And finally, she made it home. They left like Sunday morning. They couldn't take it anymore.
Did
So that's my Woodstock '99 story.
so they didn't go to any of the show? Like none of the.
Like they heard some bands. She doesn't even remember who she heard. Like literally a Friday when they got there, and then a little bit on Saturday morning, and then they made the decision to get out of there. So
Yeah, I am.
it
That's
was,
understandable. Like,
yeah, it was the right. I think it was the right call. And
yeah,
and if
probably.
you've seen any of those Woodstock '99 documentaries, it looks like a freaking
Yeah,
disaster.
yeah, yeah. I think I remember like there was like shit everywhere. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The porta potties were overflowing, and water. A bottle of water was like $12 or $15, and there
it's
wasn't
like
enough
fentanyl.
water. And yeah, yeah, exactly. Except this was 25 years ago.
Right, right. Yeah. Adjusted for
uh,
inflation, that's a $70 bottle of water.
that's exactly right. um, what was your first concert, Bill?
Oh, I was hoping you would ask me this because I it's not that it's a good story. It's a good concert to be your first concert. My first concert was the Beach Boys. Because
Okay.
remember, Still Cruising was the first album that was ever mine, my
Right.
album.
Yep.
And they played at the now. Are you from the New England area?
No, no, I'm
No.
not.
So it was at the Warwick Musical Theater in Warwick, Rhode Island, which does not exist anymore. And what it was a giant tent on the side of the road, like the side of just imagine any like main like retail strip in America, like a big main road with a bunch of stores and malls and all that stuff lining it. It was just on the side of the road, a huge tent, and it was called locally just the tent.
Oh.
And it historically a huge act. So the Rolling Stones famously played a show there. Then Mick Jagger got arrested for, I don't remember if it was marijuana. It's a big story. He got arrested and banned from the state of Rhode Island for a time. He couldn't come back.
Oh my God! What do you know when that was?
I want to say
Must have been the 70s.
60s or 70s. Yeah, like young. He was young, and he so like this for being such a weird venue. And again, Warwick's the town I'm from. It's a suburb of Providence, so it's not even like an urban area. It's just like a suburban area in like a retail area. So it was like a weird spot, but they got big acts. Okay. And so I loved the Beach Boys. So my mom got us tickets to see them. So we went, and this place was like the stage, depending on the show. Sometimes the stage would rotate, but it was almost like you were sitting in a circus tent surrounding the stage. So none of the seats were bad.
Okay.
And but what's great about having gone to the show, like this was still the original lineup. Brian Wilson was still in the band.
Oh wow.
His name just Carl Wilson was still alive. So it was the original lineup. So I got to see, it was the late 90s, so I was somewhere between 10 and 12. Okay. I have to look it up. But so I got to see the original lineup of the Beach Boys, which probably wasn't from not much longer. I think by the early 2000s, at least Brian Wilson was at the band. So
right.
And Carl Wilson died. So it was awesome. Just especially as like growing up, that was one of the bands I liked from like my parents. And then we stood outside afterwards and watched them come out, and they came out like wicked close to us. And the joke is that Carl Wilson like smiled at my mom like he was flirting with my mom or something. I don't know if that's true.
There we go. That's great. And you said that was the late 90s. Okay.
Yeah, so I would say between 97, 99, around there.
So you were like 10 or 12.
Probably. Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
Okay. And so that was your first. What was your most recent show?
Also glad you asked me about that. My most recent show was just almost exactly a month ago. I went to Disturbed's 25th anniversary of their first album tour in Boston. And I've been to like 10 or more Disturbed shows, and this is the best one by far I've ever been to. It was divided into the first half. They played their first album in its entirety, and some of those songs they haven't played in 25 years. They do on their first album is a cover of Shout. I can't, God forgive me, I don't know who sings the original. They do a cover of So they do a cover of the song Shout, and they hadn't played it in 25 years. So that was really cool. So it was just exhilarating. And then the second half was like them, playing the rest of the hits. And it was just awesome. Just like, if you're a Disturbed fan, it's one of the best concerts I've ever been to, just period.
Where was the show?
TD Garden, where the Bruins and Celtics play.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So and I did actually. I'm looking at them, and I saw they're on tour now, and they play arenas. So
they're sold out. Places
so it's a whole world that I'm unaware of, which is great. I mean, their album covers are a little scary.
They are.
Sure.
I like.
Yeah. So would you rank that as your best concert of all time, or is there something you've seen over the years that you would consider your best concert or most memorable concert?
That's tough. I've been to several that I really enjoyed. It's a top 3 for sure. Coincidentally, maybe the one that might be better or at least as good that jumps out at me was I went to Korn's 20th anniversary concert back in 2014. The tour was 2014 to 2015. And they played their whole first album in its entirety and then played the hits. But especially notable, so like I said, Korn was like along with Sugar Ray, was like the first, band of my own, so to speak. Like the first band I was into on my own. So, Korn's always had like a special place in my heart. And so that show was especially like special for me. And their first album has always been my favorite one, even though it's not the first one I heard, but just like, I don't know, there's something about that album I love. So what's really notable about that tour was the last song on that album, which is self-titled, is called Daddy. And the song is about the lead singer, Jonathan Davis, being sexually abused as a child. Ironically, not by his father. I'm not entirely sure why it's called Daddy.
Okay.
He was not abused by his father. It was a female family friend. But song's called Daddy. And the song is so tough for him that he hadn't played it in 20 years. It was played exactly one time, the recording on the album, and then never again, or maybe an early concert or two, but they never played it again, not for 20 years. And if you listen to it on the album, at the end, and the song's very powerful, at the end of the song, he just breaks down and starts sobbing. And it's real. And the producers just let the tape roll. They didn't shut it off. They didn't stop him, nothing. So the song on the album ends with like 5 minutes of him just like sobbing, like uncontrollable.
Oh my God.
And so he didn't play this song for, I'm getting goosebumps actually talking about this. He hadn't played the song in 20 years, and they played it on that tour. And to get to see it live, and they'll probably never play it again unless they do like a 30th or 40th or whatever. But to see it live was just incredible. So that one might edge out Disturbed just like for that reason, because it was such a powerful moment to see him sing that song. Just awesome.
When was that show, Bill?
The tour was 2014 to 2015 because the album came out in 94. So I can't remember if my leg of the tour was in 2014 or 2015, but it would have been right around there.
Got it. Wow. That's it sounds like a powerful song. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's very if you hear it, it is powerful, but it's like obviously very like graphic and sad.
Yeah.
And angry.
Oh God. Oof. What a way to go. Jesus.
And that's kind of why I love this genre of music. Like it's sadly for the artists, all the best songs are written out of despair, like traumas that they've suffered. But like it not to just talk bad about like pop music, current pop music and stuff like that, but it's all like it all follows the same kind of vapid formula, and it's just like I'm whatever, and it's most of it is not, or the only thing coming close to like a song about trauma is like, oh, we broke up and I'm sad, not to oversimplify it, but that's probably the vast majority of like the current pop music. But like these songs, like these hard rock and like new metal bands, were all like just like they were like pouring their soul out into the music. And like I know the genre isn't for everyone, especially younger people and older people. You kind of had to be like in my generation. It's like my generation specifically that loves this music.
Yeah, it's a sweet spot for sure.
Right. So I get that it's not for everyone, but like that's the reason I'm drawn to it. And not like my life has been fine. I just want to point out, like I have no like major not to try like I'm like a suburban kid who had a relatively, normal upbringing, no big problems, no abuse, nothing like that. I'm lucky for that. Right. But just still, it's just, it resonates with me. Just, just the powerful messages in some of these songs.
Wow. Well, listen, it sounds like you're lucky you didn't go down the Sugar Ray path, because you may have had some issues.
Right. I've actually never seen Sugar Ray live, and I loved them as a kid. And I would see them. It's not because even now I would go if they were coming around, but it just, I kind of headed towards that route. And then, I like also, growing up in the early being in high school and stuff, the early 2000s, those early 2000s, like pop punk type bands and stuff, like, I love all of that too. Like 182,
right.
Fall Out Boy, The Killers, stuff like that, Yeah. But my, my sweet spot has always been like those like new metal and hard rock bands.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. And, I really appreciate you coming on today. Interesting because, you know, and you know, once we had a little back and forth, and you mentioned a couple of these bands, I knew it would be interesting to hear about it because I don't know a lot about these bands, and I'm not sure of the audience who does. So much appreciated. I'm definitely going to
Yeah.
check out some of these songs. I'm going to check out the Sounds of Silence as soon as
I
we're
think
done here.
I think you like it. Like if you, I mean, if you are especially attached to the original Simon and Garfunkel version, you maybe
Hmm.
won't like. It's very different.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. Like it's certainly like it's not heavy. Most of it is not heavy. It's actually quite like I don't say quiet's not the right word, but it's like it, I don't know how to explain it exactly. Mellowish, but like just much darker.
Right. Intense.
Right. Intense.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Intense for sure.
I'm glad I could help.
Like your words escape me sometimes.
Well, listen, we'll wrap up. I wanted to say thank you again. I think you should work on your karaoke idea because I don't think it's crazy.
Thank you.
Uh,
I don't think it's great. I think it would be fun.
yeah,
What I don't know. Montante laughed me out of the room.
I mean, come on, this guy is, he's down there playing golf in the middle of winter in Jersey.
Yeah,
So
he's
who knows?
looking at drones,
Yeah, exactly. Right. He's looking at drones.
chasing
Um,
drones.
That's right. So, Bill, thanks again. I want to thank Kirk, obviously, and I want to thank the Minifan
Yes,
Network for all the support.
thank you, Kirk,
And
always.
yeah, and I appreciate you coming on, Bill. And to all the listeners, again, I've said this a couple times. Anybody wants to hop on here, I love talking music, even the music I'm not aware of, obviously, with this episode. So please reach out to me, and thank you again. And we'll be talking to everybody soon. Have a great day.
Thank you.